Welcome to the Book Nook, everybody.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I want you to imagine right now that you are standing in this tiny windowless room, and it is just absolutely sweltering,
Like incredibly hot.
unbearable. So you look over at the wall, and you see the thermostat is set to, like, 90 degrees.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's miserable.
Right. And you think, well, the obvious solution here is to just cool the room down. So you bring in a massive industrial fan.
Uh-huh.
You haul in, I don't know, giant blocks of ice. You strip off your heavy sweater. And for a few minutes, you feel a breeze.
The temperature drops a little.
Exactly. The ambient temperature drops. You wipe the sweat from your forehead, you step back, and you admire your hard work. You're thinking you have permanently solved the problem.
But you haven't.
No, because underneath that temporary breeze, like behind the wall, the furnace is still just roaring.
Right, because the thermostat is still set to 90.
Exactly. The internal setting, that mechanical brain dictating the whole environment, is still locked at 90 degrees. So within 20 minutes, the ice melts. The fan is just blowing hot air around, and you are right back to sweltering.
You're right back where you started.
Yeah. The external fixes were entirely useless against this invisible internal baseline.
Which is, it's just the perfect metaphor for human behavior, isn't it?
It really is.
Because we are biologically and psychologically wired to seek out immediate, visible solutions to our discomfort. Like, if we lack money, our immediate instinct is to, work an extra shift.
Or start a side hustle.
Right, or try to day trade our way out of a deficit. We bring in the fan, we bring in the ice, but we completely ignore the neurocognitive thermostat that is actually dictating our baseline reality.
And that invisible thermostat is exactly what we are dismantling today.
I'm excited for this one.
Me too. We are doing a deep dive into a concept that fundamentally shifts how we understand personal economics. It's all sourced from Harv Eker's incredibly provocative book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Mastering the Inner Game of Wealth.
It's such a classic.
It really is. And the mission of this deep dive is to help you locate and unpack your own financial conditioning. We are going to look at the deeply ingrained, often toxic, money habits you've inherited.
The stuff you don't even realize is there.
Exactly. And we'll walk through how to overwrite that old code by installing what Eker calls the 17 wealth files.
Yeah, but before we get into the files, Eker makes this massive, almost audacious claim right in the introduction.
He does.
He states that his framework provides the literal missing link between a person's conscious desire for success and their actual physical achievement of it.
Because, let's be honest, if simply wanting to be wealthy was enough,
Everyone on Earth would be a billionaire.
right, we all want it.
But the disparity between desire and outcome is, well, it's one of the great psychological paradoxes of our time. We have access to more financial information, more investment vehicles, and more economic mobility than any generation in human history.
They'll write on our phones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The how-to of wealth is just a commodity now. You can look up a tutorial on index funds or real estate syndication in like 3 seconds on YouTube.
Totally.
Yet the vast majority of people remain completely financially stagnant, and Eker approaches this not as an economic problem, but as an acute psychological one.
Yeah, and he asks his readers to do something highly unusual for an author in the personal development space.
Oh, I love this part.
He explicitly says, "Don't believe a word I say."
Which is brilliant. It's a great rhetorical device, but it also establishes a sort of scientific methodology.
Oh, yeah, he isn't asking for blind faith.
No, he wants empirical testing. He wants you, the listener, to treat your own life as a laboratory.
But to understand how to reprogram a system, we first need to understand the architecture of the machine, right?
Yes. We need to look at how that financial thermostat was set in the first place.
So let's talk about what Eker identifies as the process of manifestation.
Right.
It is this linear causal chain that dictates every outcome in our lives. The formula is, and I'll just lay it out here, programming leads to thoughts, thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions, and actions lead to results.
P leads to T, leads to F, leads to A equals R.
Exactly.
And if we pause and look at this through the lens of modern neuroscience, it maps perfectly onto how our brains actually function.
Let's break that down for people.
Sure. So your programming is essentially your implicit memory. It's the neural pathways formed in childhood.
Because the leap from programming to results can sound a bit, I don't know, esoteric.
Like magical thinking.
Yeah, like magical thinking, if we don't ground it in the actual mechanics of the brain.
Yeah.
So when we talk about programming, we're really talking about the default mode network, right?
Yes, those subconscious scripts that just run continuously in the background.
Right.
So from the ages of 0 to 7, the human brain operates primarily in theta brainwave states.
It was basically a state of hypnosis.
Exactly. We are simply absorbing data without any critical filter. A kid doesn't say, oh, my dad is wrong about money. They just absorb it as fact.
Right. That data becomes the programming.
And then later in life, when you encounter a financial stimulus, say a huge bill arrives in the mail, or you are offered a high-stakes promotion, that programming generates spontaneous thoughts.
And you don't even control those thoughts.
You really don't. And those thoughts immediately signal the amygdala and the limbic system to produce feelings. So maybe you feel anxiety, or maybe you feel excitement.
Okay, and then those feelings dictate your actions.
Right. Do you open the bill and make a budget, or do you just shove it in a drawer and ignore it?
Do you take the promotion, or do you subconsciously self-sabotage?
Exactly. And finally, those actions produce your measurable results, your actual bank balance.
It creates such a fascinating paradigm shift regarding accountability. Because, like, if I am drowning in credit card debt, my culture tells me my problem is bad math.
Right, or a lack of discipline.
But Eker's formula suggests my debt is actually an emotional problem. It's born out of a subconscious thought, which was triggered by a childhood program.
Trying to fix the debt by just writing a new budget is, well, Eker uses the tree analogy.
I love the tree analogy.
It's like trying to change the fruits on a tree by painting them a different color. You can't do it. You have to go underground.
The visible world is merely a printout of the invisible world.
Exactly. If the fruits of a tree are bitter or scarce, a botanist doesn't treat the fruit. They treat the soil. They examine the root system.
But in our financial lives, we constantly obsess over the fruit.
We stare at our bank balances.
We stare at our investment portfolios, our salaries, and we try to manipulate those external metrics without ever addressing the internal root system that produced them.
A lack of money is never a standalone problem.
It's a symptom.
Yes. It is the printout of a corrupted software file.
So I want to focus on that software corruption. Like, how does the malware actually get installed in our brains?
Well, Eker categorizes our foundational programming into 3 distinct buckets. There's verbal programming, modeling, and specific incidents.
Let's tackle verbal programming first.
Okay.
This involves every single phrase, every idiom, every offhand comment you heard about money when you were a child.
Things like, money doesn't grow on trees.
Or, rich people are greedy.
We can't afford that.
Money is the root of all evil. All of those.
The insidious nature of verbal programming is that it masquerades as objective truth.
Right.
To a child, a parent's worldview is not just an opinion. It is the fundamental law of the universe.
They don't know any better.
No, they don't. And Eker illustrates the sheer power of this with an incredible story about a seminar attendee named Stephen.
Oh, the Stephen story is wild.
It really is. So Stephen was a high-earning professional. He was pulling in over $800,000 a year.
Wait, $800,000 a year?
Yes. And he had maintained that incredible income level for nearly a decade.
Which means he had earned, what, around $8 million over that time span?
Exactly. So by any external metric, Stephen is highly successful.
But wait, his net worth was zero.
Exactly. Zero.
How is that even possible?
He was living paycheck to paycheck on an $800,000 salary.
That is mind-boggling.
He managed to squander every cent. He made terrible investments. He loaned money to people who never paid him back. And he just had sheer lifestyle inflation.
I mean, from a purely logical standpoint, Stephen's behavior is incomprehensible.
Totally incomprehensible.
No.
But when Eker dug into his verbal programming, the whole mystery just unraveled.
Because of his mom.
Because of his mom. When Stephen was a boy, his mother constantly repeated a specific phrase. She'd say, "Richie people are greedy. They make their money off the sweat of the poor. You should have just enough to get by. After that, you're a pig."
Wow, you're a
Okay.
pig. This is a perfect example of cognitive dissonance playing out in real time. Stephen's conscious mind, his prefrontal cortex, completely understands how to generate immense value in the marketplace.
He knows how to make money.
Right. But his limbic system, his emotional core, associates the accumulation of that money with being a greedy pig who exploits the poor.
And crucially, it associates wealth with the loss of his mother's love and approval.
Which is huge.
It's everything. Humans are tribal animals. From an evolutionary standpoint, parental approval equals survival. If you are cast out of the tribe, you die.
So when the subconscious mind is forced to choose between a deeply rooted emotional survival mechanism and pure financial logic,
The emotion will win every single time.
without
Hazen's brain assessed the accumulation of wealth as a literal threat to his core identity and his maternal bond.
so it was protecting him.
Exactly. His brain constantly forced him to dump the money to stay safe and maintain his identity as a good, non-greedy person.
The intervention Eker facilitated for Stephen is just brilliant.
It really is.
Because he didn't try to teach Stephen better accounting skills.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked.
He relied on cognitive reframing. They discovered that Stephen's mother absolutely loved Hawaii.
Yes.
So Stephen purchased a beachfront condo in Maui, and he sent his mother there for 6 months out of the year.
It was a surgical rewiring of his verbal programming. Because suddenly, his mother was bragging to all her friends about her incredibly generous, wealthy son.
Right. Stephen didn't have to choose between being rich and having his mother's approval anymore.
He realized he could actually use his wealth to generate immense joy for the exact person who had originally conditioned him to fear it.
That is so powerful.
Once that subconscious conflict was resolved, Stephen became a millionaire in under 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. He didn't learn a new stock trading strategy. He just stopped unconsciously hemorrhaging his capital to appease a ghost in his programming.
That is just incredible. And that moves us right into the second type of conditioning, which is modeling. Because we don't just absorb what we hear. Our mirror neurons constantly record and replicate what we see our caregivers doing.
Yes, monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly. And Eker uses his own father as a prime example of this. His father was a builder, and he experienced these massive boom and bust cycles.
Right, he would make a fortune, invest heavily in new projects, the market would shift, and then they would be entirely broke.
It was a completely chaotic yo-yo financial existence.
And when Eker grew up and started his own businesses, what happened?
He found himself unconsciously replicating that exact same boom and bust cycle.
Yep, he would build a company up and then either sabotage it or make some reckless pivot and end up right back at zero.
Modeling is perhaps the most difficult conditioning to break, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because it operates beneath the level of language. You don't have a specific quote to point to like Stephen did with his mom.
You just have this embedded template of what financial reality is supposed to feel like.
Yes. And for Eker, financial reality felt chaotic. If things were too stable, his nervous system actually perceived that stability as wrong.
Or unfamiliar.
Right. It prompted him to blow things up just to return to the familiar baseline of chaos.
I see this manifest frequently in discussions about generational trauma, especially regarding, like, the Great Depression or major economic recessions.
Oh, definitely.
You see two highly divergent modeling outcomes. Some children of Depression-era parents adopt a severe scarcity model.
They hoard every penny.
They hoard it, they refuse to invest, and they live in constant paranoia of ruin.
But then others rebel entirely.
Yes, they become chronic spenders. They operate under the fatalistic assumption that, well, it could all disappear tomorrow, so I might as well enjoy it today.
And both of those reactions are dictated by the exact same underlying fear.
Right.
This actually brings us to a specific modeling trap that Eker warns against. And it's something everyone does.
Oh, saving for a rainy day.
Yes, the universally accepted wisdom of saving for a rainy day.
Which sounds completely logical.
Right. From a traditional financial literacy standpoint, having an emergency fund is just prudent. But Eker introduces the law of intention.
And what does that mean in this context?
It posits that what you focus your energy on, you inevitably expand. So if your foundational intention for saving money is to prepare for a catastrophic disaster, you are essentially signaling to your reticular activating system.
The filtering center of the brain.
Exactly. You're telling it to constantly scan the horizon for disasters.
So if you are saving for a rainy day, your psychological energy is anchored in fear. It's anchored in the anticipation of loss.
Eker argues that you should absolutely save money, but you must aggressively reframe the intention behind it.
You literally rename the account.
You do. You save for a joyous day, or you save for your financial freedom.
It seems like a mere semantic trick.
It does, but neurobiologically, you are shifting your brain out of a defensive, hypervigilant state and into a creative, expansive state.
Okay, that brings us to the third and final root of our conditioning, specific incidents.
These are intense.
Yeah, these are the acute, highly emotional, often traumatic experiences we have surrounding money. And Eker tells this haunting story of a woman named Josie.
The operating room nurse.
Right. She was an excellent earner, but a compulsive spender. She physically could not hold on to money.
It just slipped through her fingers.
And during a seminar, she actually traced this compulsion back to a specific incident when she was 11 years old.
Yeah.
She was at a restaurant with her parents, and they got into a vicious, screaming argument about money. Her father stood up, slammed his fist on the table, turned beet red, and dropped dead of a massive heart attack right in front of her.
God. It is a devastating story.
It's horrific.
But it provides a stark look at how trauma physically binds concepts together in the brain.
Right. In that agonizing moment, Josie's young mind forged an unbreakable neural link between two concepts, money and lethal pain.
From that day forward, money wasn't currency to her. It was a lethal threat.
So as an adult, whenever her bank account balance grew, her subconscious mind triggered the exact same panic response she felt in that restaurant.
Her mind literally screamed, "This is dangerous, it causes death, get rid of it."
So she spent it all to alleviate the subconscious anxiety.
And furthermore, she subconsciously chose a career as a nurse, still desperately trying to save her father.
Wow. You know, once you understand the etiology of these behaviors, it completely removes the shame.
It really does. Josie wasn't stupid.
Stephen wasn't irresponsible.
No, they were operating perfectly in accordance with the software installed in their minds.
But I have to play devil's advocate here on behalf of our listeners.
Go for it.
If my brain is the hardware, right, and my conditioning, the verbal phrases, the modeling, the traumas, are the software files,
Yeah.
am I not just a prisoner to my past?
That's the fear, isn't it?
Yeah, I cannot change the fact that my parents fought about money or that we lost our house in a recession. The past is immutable.
The past is immutable, yes, but your relationship to it is highly plastic.
Neuroplasticity.
Exactly. The brain is not a static machine. You are not doomed to run the broken code forever. Eker provides a 4-step framework to uninstall the old malware, which he calls the elements of change.
Okay, let's go through them. Step 1.
Step 1 is awareness. You cannot change a program that's running in the dark.
You have to drag it into the light.
You have to articulate the exact phrases you heard and the exact behaviors you witnessed.
Okay, and step 2 is understanding.
Right.
This is recognizing the origin of the file. It involves looking objectively at your conditioning and saying, you know, this financial fear didn't originate inside me. It was handed to me by an anxious parent or a flawed cultural narrative.
Which leads to the critical 3rd step, disassociation.
Disassociation.
This is a profound cognitive shift. You must realize that you are the computer, you are not the software.
Right. The file is installed on your hard drive, but it is not you.
And because it is not you, you have the agency to click delete.
Love that. And step 4 is reconditioning, because nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. If you delete a limiting belief about money, you must actively install a new, empowering belief in its place.
Which is where Eker's 17 wealth files come into play. They are the new software updates.
So let's initiate the download.
Yes, let's do it. So the very first file we must install, wealth file number 1, is a foundational operating system of the entire Millionaire Mind.
Rich people believe, I create my life. Poor people believe, life happens to me.
This is the definitive shift in the locus of control.
In psychology, an external locus of control means you believe external forces, the economy, your boss, the government, sheer luck dictate your outcomes.
While an internal locus of control means you believe you are the ultimate architect of your reality.
Right. If you want to create wealth, you must ruthlessly adopt an internal locus of control. If you don't, you are inherently adopting the persona of a victim.
And Eker points out that the victim identity is incredibly seductive.
Because it absolves you of responsibility.
Exactly. He outlines 3 major clues that someone is running the victim software.
Okay, clue number 1 is blaming.
It is a defense mechanism. Instead of looking at their own habits, the victim points the finger at the stock market,
Or the current political administration.
their spouse, their upbringing, their industry. It is a masterful deflection of accountability.
Clue number 2 is justifying. And this often masquerades as like philosophical detachment.
Oh yeah, people will say things like, well, money isn't really that important. Happiness is what matters.
Eker destroys this argument with a brilliant analogy. He says, imagine looking at your spouse and telling them, you know, you aren't really that important to me.
How long is that spouse going to stick around?
Not long. Money operates on the exact same energetic frequency. If you constantly broadcast that money isn't important, you will repel it.
And the comparison itself is just intellectually bankrupt. Claiming money isn't as important as love or happiness is like claiming your left arm isn't as important as your right leg.
They serve entirely different vital functions in the human experience.
Money cannot buy love, but love cannot pay for your child's medical bills. It can't fund a community center.
That brings us to the most destructive victim clue of all: complaining.
Oh boy.
Eker refers to complaining as the absolute worst thing you can do for your health or your wealth.
Because when we complain, what are we doing neurologically? We are hyper-focusing our attention on everything that is wrong, broken, or unfair in our environment.
And because of the law of intention, whatever we focus on expands. Eker says that when you complain, you turn yourself into a living, breathing crap magnet.
The imagery he uses is visceral. He says that every time you complain, you are slitting your own financial throat.
It's brutal.
But let's dig into the psychology here. Humans are rational actors to some degree, right? We do things because they offer a reward. So what is the hidden payoff of complaining? Why do people cling to the victim role if it guarantees they stay broke and miserable?
It is a phenomenal question, and the answer cuts right to the core of human vulnerability. The hidden payoff of victimhood is attention.
Attention.
Yes. When you complain, people listen. They offer sympathy. They validate your struggle. And tragically, many people have deeply confused attention with love.
Wow.
They believe that if someone is paying attention to their suffering, they are being loved. So they subconsciously maintain their suffering, they stay broke, and they stay helpless, purely to ensure a steady supply of attention.
But Eker draws a hard line in the sand. There is no such thing as a really rich victim.
You can be a victim or you can be wealthy, but you cannot be both. The identities are mutually exclusive.
So shedding that victim identity leads perfectly into Wealth Files 2 and 3, which deal with intention and strategy.
Right. Rich people play the money game to win. Poor people play the money game not to lose.
This is the difference between playing offense and playing defense. If you watch a sports team play entirely on defense, never attempting to advance the ball, the absolute best outcome they can hope for is a tie.
They will never win.
Yet, this is exactly how the middle class approaches personal finance.
The primary objective of the middle class is survival and security. Their goal is to be comfortable.
But comfort is a trap.
If your highest intention is merely to have enough money to pay your bills on time, the universe will ensure you get exactly that, just enough to pay the bills and not a single penny more.
Your financial thermostat is set to survival.
While the wealthy set their thermostat to massive abundance.
Eker unpacks the psychology of this by breaking down the 3 levels of wanting.
Oh, this is great.
Level 1 is simply, I want to be rich. This is entirely passive. It basically translates to, I will accept wealth if it miraculously falls into my lap.
It requires zero personal agency.
Level 2 is, I choose to be rich, which is better. It involves a conscious decision and a willingness to take some responsibility.
But it is still not enough to overcome the friction of the real world.
Right. The only level that actually alters reality is level 3. I commit to being rich.
The word commit comes from a Latin root meaning to bind or pledge oneself completely. It means holding absolutely nothing back.
It requires giving 100% of your time, energy, and capital to achieving the goal.
Doing whatever it takes, provided it is legal, moral, and ethical.
I mean, if you approach an average person and ask, are you willing to work 16-hour days, sacrifice your weekends for the next 5 years, risk all your saved capital on a venture with no guarantee of return, and face constant public rejection?
Most people will immediately say no.
Of course. They want the wealth, but they reject the price tag.
The wealthy person says yes to the price tag.
That level of unyielding commitment requires massive external scaling, which brings us to Wealth File 4. Rich people think big, poor people think small.
Commitment is an internal state, but to generate wealth, that internal state must interact with the external marketplace.
Eker introduces the law of income. You will be paid in direct proportion to the value you deliver to the marketplace.
This requires a fundamental redefinition of what an entrepreneur actually is.
Yes, because society often paints entrepreneurs as greedy capitalists.
But an entrepreneur is fundamentally just a person who solves problems for a profit. If you invent a better way to filter water, you are solving a problem.
If you start a reliable dog walking service, you are solving a problem.
The magnitude of your wealth is entirely dependent on the magnitude of the problem you solve and the number of people you solve it for.
It is an issue of scale. Do you want to solve a minor problem for 10 people, or do you want to solve a massive problem for 10 million people?
Eker quotes Buckminster Fuller, who said, "The purpose of our lives is to add value to the people of this generation and those that follow."
Playing small, hiding your talents, Keeping your business local when it could scale globally does not serve the world.
The byproduct of helping a million people is that you become a millionaire.
But thinking big requires navigating massive uncertainty, which leads us to Wealth File 5. Rich people focus on opportunities. Poor people focus on obstacles.
This is essentially the application of loss aversion bias.
Behavioral economics tells us that humans feel the pain of a loss twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
And poor people allow this biological bias to paralyze them. They constantly scan a new venture for what could go wrong. They want absolute certainty before they take a single step.
Eker calls this the ready, aim, aim, aim approach.
Yes. They spend years researching, writing business plans, and waiting for the perfect time.
But the perfect time never arrives. By the time they have mitigated every perceived risk, the opportunity has vanished.
The rich operate on a ready, fire, aim philosophy. They understand that action produces data.
I find his concept of entering the corridor to be one of the most practical pieces of advice in the entire book.
It is basically the lean startup methodology applied to human behavior.
Tell Dessert Cafe's story because I love that one.
Okay, so Eker wanted to open an all-night dessert cafe in Florida, and he started doing what the middle class does, researching from the outside. He studied commercial real estate, he analyzed foot traffic, he ate an obscene amount of pie and cake to test the product.
He jokes just made him gain weight.
Right. He was trying to map the entire territory without ever stepping foot in it. But he eventually realized his error and decided to enter the corridor.
By getting a job, right?
He went to a highly successful pie shop and got a minimum wage job sweeping floors and washing dishes.
He didn't care about the hourly wage. He was getting paid in data.
Exactly. By being inside the corridor, he learned the daily operational friction. He observed which equipment was prone to breaking. He saw the inventory management flow.
He learned more in 1 week of sweeping floors than he could have in a year of reading textbooks.
It is the realization that life does not travel in straight, predictable lines. It operates like a winding river.
You can only see as far as the next bend. You cannot plan for what is around the third bend while standing on the dock.
You have to get in the boat, navigate to the first turn, and only then will the next stretch of river reveal itself. You adjust your aim while in motion.
Now, there is a common cultural pushback to this philosophy. People look at a successful person who took a risk and say, well, they just got lucky.
Oh, all the time. They assume that leaping into the corridor without a perfect plan is akin to gambling.
But Eker completely redefines the mechanics of luck.
Yes, he argues that luck, or serendipity, or universal support, whatever you want to call it, is not a random lottery. It is a kinetic force.
It only interacts with objects in motion.
You have to buy the real estate, start the LLC, launch the website, or make the cold call. You have to create a physical vehicle for luck to attach itself to.
You cannot be struck by lightning if you refuse to walk out into the storm. Action is the absolute prerequisite for serendipity.
And as you move through that storm, taking action, you are guaranteed to encounter massive problems.
Which brings us to Wealth File 9. Rich people are bigger than their problems. Poor people are smaller than their problems.
Eker visualizes this using a scale from 1 to 10. Imagine you are currently a person with a level 2 capacity, and your emotional resilience, your financial knowledge, your leadership skills.
Okay, I'm a level 2.
And you encounter a level 5 problem. To a level 2 person, a level 5 problem looks like an insurmountable, catastrophic mountain.
It induces total panic. It makes you want to quit and retreat to safety.
But imagine you commit to your own growth. You read, you seek mentorship, you build emotional regulation, you expand yourself into a level 8 person.
Okay?
Now, how does that exact same level 5 problem look to you?
It looks completely different.
The problem hasn't changed. The math is the same, but the problem is now smaller than you. It is no longer a catastrophe. It is merely a logistical hurdle to be cleared before lunch.
Eker hits the reader with a brutal truth here. If you have a big problem in your life, all that means is that you are being a small person.
Ouch.
I know, that stings. But it is incredibly liberating because it means the solution isn't to pray for fewer problems. The solution is to radically increase your own capacity.
The goal isn't to shrink your challenges. It is to grow yourself.
This internal expansion inevitably leads to external success. But as you grow and start accumulating wealth, you will encounter a deeply insidious psychological trap.
If your underlying subconscious still harbors resentment toward wealth, you will sabotage your own growth.
This brings us to Wealth Files 6 and 7. Rich people admire other rich and successful people. Poor people resent them.
This ties back to the societal conditioning we discussed earlier. If you have spent your life watching movies where the villain is always the greedy corporate CEO and the hero is always the noble, impoverished underdog.
You subconsciously equate wealth with moral corruption.
Exactly. If you see a person driving a customized Porsche and your immediate internal dialogue is, look at that arrogant jerk, he probably exploited his workers to buy that. You are poisoning your own well.
You're creating a cognitive paradox. You desire wealth, but you despise those who possess it.
The human ego strives for moral consistency. If you believe rich people are inherently bad and you desperately want to view yourself as a good person, your subconscious will absolutely forbid you from becoming rich.
You cannot become what you consistently condemn.
Eker references the Huna philosophy from native Hawaiian culture, which offers a beautiful antidote. Bless that which you want.
So if you desire a beautiful home overlooking the ocean, and you see someone who has one, you do not curse them in envy.
You bless them, you bless their home, and you bless their success.
By doing so, you align your subconscious energy with the acquisition of that desire, rather than framing it as a source of bitterness.
It shifts your relationship with success from an antagonistic one to an associative one. You begin to seek out the wealthy not to judge them, but to model them.
Because energy is highly contagious. If you associate with chronic complainers, their victim mentality will infect you.
If you associate with expansive, ambitious creators, their standard of normalcy will pull you upward.
But mingling with successful people requires you to bring value to the table, which leads to Wealth File 8. Rich people are willing to promote themselves and their value. Poor people think negatively about selling and promotion.
I see this constantly.
Oh, all the time. Extremely talented artists, brilliant coders, or insightful consultants who are completely broke because they feel it is impolite or slimy to toot their own horn.
It is a toxic hangover from aristocratic cultural norms where talking about money was deemed gauche. But in the modern marketplace, obscurity is your greatest enemy.
Eker points to Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Kiyosaki has openly stated that he is the best-selling author, not the best writing author.
The marketplace rewards the distribution of value, not just the creation of it.
If you genuinely believe that your product or service can help people, it is not just good business to promote it, it is your moral obligation.
Refusing to sell is an act of supreme selfishness because you are withholding the cure from those who need it, purely to protect your own ego from the discomfort of self-promotion.
Why is that discomfort so intense? Why do we shrink back?
Well, Eker argues that the root cause of this hesitation, and perhaps the single biggest psychological roadblock to wealth in the entire book, is Wealth File 10.
Poor people are terrible receivers.
Yes. They might be incredibly generous givers, but the act of receiving causes them immense distress.
The inability to receive is almost universally anchored in a deep-seated feeling of unworthiness.
At some point in childhood, through punishment, criticism, or neglect, we install a program that says, I am not good enough. I am fundamentally flawed.
Therefore, when the universe or the marketplace attempts to hand us a reward, we reject it because it conflicts with our internal identity of unworthiness.
Eker completely dismantles this illusion of unworthiness with a concept he calls the made-up story.
Tell me about that.
He asks the reader to imagine the moment of their birth. Did a cosmic bureaucrat come down with a clipboard and a stamp, examine you, and stamp worthy on your forehead, and then look at the baby next to you and stamp unworthy?
It highlights the sheer absurdity of the concept.
Worthiness is not a biological fact. It is not an objective law of physics. It is a completely fabricated social construct.
You and you alone are the author of your story. If you decree that you are worthy, you are. If you decree that you are unworthy, you are.
Both are fictions, but you will live out the script of whichever fiction you choose to believe.
I love his analogy of the oak tree. He says, imagine a magnificent 100-foot oak tree. Now, imagine if that tree had the mind of a human being. It would probably only grow to be 10 feet tall.
Because it would start overthinking.
Exactly. It would think, am I taking up too much soil? Do I really deserve all this sunlight? I shouldn't overshadow the other plants. I'm going to play it small.
Nature does not question its right to exist and expand. A tree simply grows to the absolute maximum capacity its environment allows.
Only humans possess the cognitive distortion required to intentionally stunt their own growth out of a fabricated sense of guilt.
And if you maintain a stunted capacity to receive, you mathematically cannot accumulate wealth. The universe functions on balance. If you refuse to receive, you are actually blocking the flow of the person trying to give.
Like if someone tries to pay you a compliment
Yeah.
and you immediately deflect it by saying, oh, this old shirt, I got it on clearance.
You are robbing them of the joy of giving.
So how do we fix this? If a listener realizes they are a chronic deflector, they feel guilty when someone buys them dinner, they chronically undercharge for their freelance work, how do they build that receiving muscle in real time?
Because you can't just meditate your way out of a behavioral reflex.
Right.
You fix it through behavioral exposure therapy. Eker provides highly practical action steps. First, when someone gives you a compliment, you are forbidden from deflecting it.
You just accept it.
You simply look them in the eye, smile, and say thank you. You force your nervous system to sit in the discomfort of receiving positive energy without immediately trying to discharge the debt.
And the second step.
Second, you practice celebrating every influx of wealth, no matter how microscopic. If you find a dirty penny in a parking lot, you don't ignore it. You pick it up and audibly declare, I'm a money magnet, thank you.
It sounds eccentric, but neurobiologically, you are training your reticular activating system to seek out and accept abundance. You are proving to your subconscious that it is safe to receive.
Exactly. But once you have repaired the psychological plumbing and you're open to receiving, you must have physical buckets ready to catch the water.
Mindset without mechanics is just delusion.
Yes. This transitions us into the fifth section of the book, the actual mechanics of wealth management.
This is where we move from the therapist's couch to the accountant's ledger. Wealth Files 11 and 13 confront the metrics of how we value our labor.
Poor people choose to get paid based on time. Rich people choose to get paid based on results.
The societal default is the hourly wage or the fixed salary. It feels safe. It provides a predictable floor.
But Eker warns that while a predictable floor is comforting, it inherently creates a rigid ceiling. Wealth rule number 1 is never put a ceiling on your income.
Because your time is a finite resource. You only have 24 hours in a day.
So trading time for money guarantees your wealth will be strictly limited. You must decouple your income from your physical labor.
You must transition to being paid for the value of the results you produce, whether that is through business ownership, stock options, commissions, or intellectual property royalties.
And once you sever that link between time and money, you have to change the metric by which you measure your financial health. If you go to a country club, you will never hear wealthy people asking each other, how much do you make at your job?
No, never.
The focus on working income is a middle-class obsession. The metric of the wealthy is net worth.
Net worth is the ultimate financial scorecard. It is the financial value of everything you own minus everything you owe.
You can have a working income of $500,000 a year, but if your lifestyle costs you $510,000 a year, your net worth is bleeding out.
You are high income, but you are broke.
Eker identifies the 4 pillars of net worth: income, savings, investment returns, and simplification, which means consciously controlling your cost of living. If you only focus on income, you are driving a car with one wheel.
Which makes Wealth File 14 the most critical mechanical habit of all. Rich people manage their money well. Poor people mismanage their money well.
And I want to emphasize, this has absolutely nothing to do with being a math genius. It is entirely about habituation.
To illustrate this, Eker uses the famous ice cream analogy.
Okay. Imagine you are walking down the street with a 5-year-old child. You stop at an ice cream parlor and buy them a single scoop on a cone.
Simple enough.
As soon as you step outside, the child trips, the cone wobbles, and the ice cream splatters onto the pavement. The child bursts into tears, so you turn back to the parlor to get another one.
Right.
But right outside the door, the child sees a massive poster for a giant triple scoop sundae cone. The child points and begs, I want that one.
Yeah.
Now, as a loving parent, do you buy the child the triple scoop?
Of course not. That would be a disaster. The child's just empirically proved they do not possess the fine motor skills to balance a single scoop. Handing them 3 scoops is guaranteeing a larger mess and more tears.
The universe operates on the exact same principle of capacity. The universe will not hand you millions of dollars if you cannot manage a $500 paycheck.
You have to prove you can handle a single scoop before life will trust you with the triple scoop.
The habit of managing your money is infinitely more important than the amount you are managing.
To build that habit, Eker introduces his 6 jars money management system. This is an exercise in behavioral economics and mental accounting.
You take whatever income you receive, and you compartmentalize it into 6 specific accounts with unbreakable rules.
The first is the Financial Freedom Account, the FFA. 10% of every dollar you earn goes in here. This is your golden goose.
The rule is simple. You never ever spend the principal. It is only used to invest and generate passive income.
The second jar is equally as important and often ignored by extreme frugality advocates. The play account.
10% of your income must go into this jar, and the rule is that you must blow it every single month on something that makes you feel rich.
You get a massage, you buy an expensive bottle of wine, you go to a fancy restaurant.
Why? Because human beings are not robots. If you just save, your internal emotional system will feel deprived.
Eventually, that inner child will rebel and sabotage your portfolio by impulsively buying a sports car.
Exactly. The play jar pacifies the ego and makes the process of building wealth joyful.
The remaining funds are split as follows: 10% into long-term savings for future expenses, 10% into an education account because your mind is your greatest asset, 10% into a give account for charity, and the final 50% covers your necessities: rent, food, utilities.
Now, the immediate pushback from listeners who are struggling financially is always the same.
This system is great for someone making 100 grand, but I am broke. I am borrowing money to pay my rent. I literally have $0 left over. How can I possibly split $0 into 6 accounts?
It is the most common and logical objection, but Eker's response to this is a masterclass in habit formation, echoing the principles of atomic habits.
He says, if you are completely broke, go borrow $1 extra.
Take that single physical dollar and divide it. Put 10 cents in the FFA jar, 10 cents in the play jar, 10 cents in the give jar.
It seems ridiculous to the logical mind. 10 cents will not make you rich.
But remember, this is not a mathematical exercise. It is a spiritual and neurological one. By managing that single dollar, you are shifting your identity.
You are no longer a victim who is broke. You are now an investor who manages capital.
You are demonstrating to the universe and to your own subconscious that you have the capacity to manage what you are given. Once you establish the container, the universe will send the substance to fill it.
And the ultimate goal of filling those containers brings us to Wealth File 15. Rich people have their money work hard for them. Poor people work hard for their money.
We are culturally conditioned by the Puritan work ethic to believe that sheer, grinding, physical labor is a virtue, and that it is the only honorable path to wealth.
But working hard will simply make you tired. Eker defines true financial freedom as the ability to live the lifestyle you desire without having to work or rely on anyone else for money.
Which means the goal is the accumulation of passive income. You transition your energy from working out of necessity to working purely by choice.
Your money becomes a surrogate employee, working 24 hours a day, generating interest, dividends, and cash flow, entirely independent of your physical labor.
So if we synthesize everything so far, we have uninstalled the toxic childhood malware. We have shifted our locus of control to become the creators of our reality.
We're thinking massive, entering the corridor, expanding our capacity to receive, and diligently managing our money into investments.
It sounds like a flawless blueprint, but there is a final boss, a final layer of resistance we have to defeat. And that is Section 6, overcoming fear and the ego's need to be right.
Wealth File 16 confronts this head-on. Rich people act in spite of fear. Poor people let fear stop them.
If we look back at the manifestation, formula thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings lead to actions. Action is the only bridge between the internal landscape of the mind and the external reality of the physical world.
But standing directly in the middle of that bridge, acting as a toll collector, is fear.
The great misconception of the self-help industry is that you must eliminate fear before you can achieve greatness.
People spend years reading books, meditating, waiting for their anxiety to magically vanish before they launch their business.
Eker shatters this myth. He states unequivocally that it is not necessary to get rid of fear in order to succeed. You simply have to tame it and act while terrified.
Fear is simply a biological signal. The brain's primary evolutionary function is not to make you a millionaire. Its function is to keep you alive.
It perceives anything new, unfamiliar, or uncertain as a potential threat to your survival. So it pumps your system with cortisol and adrenaline to make you retreat to safety.
Eker introduces a powerful equation to combat this. CZ equals WZ. Your comfort zone equals your wealth zone.
If you demand that every step of your journey feels perfectly safe and comfortable, your wealth zone will remain incredibly small, because the creation of wealth inherently demands risk, rejection, and the navigation of the unknown.
To expand your wealth, you must intentionally expand your comfort zone. You must subject yourself to deliberate psychological stress, much like Lifting heavy weights tears muscle fibers so they can grow back stronger.
It is the concept of anti-fragility. Your mind will fight you every step of the way.
Eker calls the human mind the greatest soap opera scriptwriter in history.
It sits in your skull, projecting vivid, high-definition movies of catastrophic failure, bankruptcy, and public humiliation, none of which have actually happened.
Mark Twain famously captured this when he said, "I've known a great many troubles, but most of them never happen."
You must realize that you are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness observing the voice.
Eker drives this point home in a visceral, terrifying way at his Enlightened Warrior training camp. To prove that the mind's fear is an illusion, he has participants do an exercise where they place the sharp point of a literal wooden arrow against the soft tissue of their throat.
The other end of the arrow is placed against a wooden board. The participant is instructed to step forward with full force and snap the arrow using only their neck.
From a purely psychological standpoint, the mind is screaming at full volume. The sympathetic nervous system is highly aroused. The brain is calculating that the arrow will pierce the trachea and result in death.
It is the ultimate manifestation of terror.
But the physics of the exercise, the reality of the material world, dictates that the tension causes the wood to snap safely.
The participants who stepped forward discovered that their fear was a complete fabrication. The biological discomfort was extreme, but it was not a stop sign.
Eker teaches that the feeling of intense discomfort is actually the exact physiological signal that you are finally growing. If you are comfortable, you are stagnating.
Which leads us to the culmination of the blueprint, Wealth File 17. Rich people constantly learn and grow. Poor people think they already know.
Eker identifies three of the most dangerous words in the English language. I know that.
It is the ultimate ego defense. When someone is struggling financially and you offer them a new paradigm, they cross their arms and say, "Yeah, I know that."
But Eker poses a brutal metric for true knowledge. If you are not living it, you do not know it.
You might have heard of it, you might be able to recite a textbook definition of it, but if it is not materially evident in your results, you have not integrated the knowledge.
Poor people are deeply invested in proving they are right. But clinging to the need to be right means you are desperately holding on to your old ways of thinking, the exact software that generated your current unsatisfactory results.
Eker says you can be right, or you can be rich, but you can't be both.
You must choose between defending your ego and expanding your reality. You have to adopt a beginner's mind, acknowledging that to achieve a reality you have never experienced, you must become a person you have never been.
As he says, every master was once a disaster. No one comes out of the womb knowing how to read financial statements or negotiate equity splits. The acquisition of wealth is simply a learnable skill, like riding a bicycle.
But the ultimate revelation of the book isn't about the money itself. The true goal of creating wealth is not to hoard a pile of cash.
The goal is the crucible of personal evolution. It is about forging your character, expanding your emotional resilience, and developing the strength required to become the kind of person who can effortlessly command and manage that level of energy.
That is the defining genius of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. It recognizes that all external business tactics, whether it is real estate, stock options, or digital entrepreneurship, are completely irrelevant if the internal architect is flawed.
It offers a tangible psychological methodology to literally rewire the neural pathways of your brain, transforming you from an unconscious victim of your programming into the sovereign creator of your economy.
And who is this deep dive ultimately for? It is for you, the listener. Perhaps you are an entrepreneur who keeps hitting an invisible glass ceiling in your revenue.
Perhaps you are an executive pulling down a massive salary, but lying awake at night drowning in consumer debt.
Or perhaps you are simply someone who realizes you have been engaged in bitter arguments with your partner over $50 purchases because your deeply embedded financial blueprints are violently clashing.
This is about lifting the hood on your own mind, examining the malware you didn't even know was running, and finally writing your own code.
It democratizes success. It strips away the myth of the lucky break or the genetic advantage and places the absolute responsibility and, more importantly, the absolute power squarely back in your own hands.
It has been a phenomenal journey unpacking this with you.
It really has. Please subscribe to the Book Nook so you never miss our analysis. And we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us which book you'd like us to explore next. We read every single one.
As you step back into your day, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to turn over in your mind. We have spent this time dissecting the architecture of a financial blueprint. We've seen how it is constructed from the anxious whispers of our parents, the chaotic modeling of our environment, and the scars of our past traumas. So I ask you, if your current financial reality is simply a robotic playback of other people's fears, opinions, and limitations, whose life are you actually living right now? And what incredible things might happen if you finally decided to live your own?
You can stare at the fan and the melting ice all day, but you cannot change the temperature of your reality until you locate the thermostat. It's time to find your dial. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive on the Book Nook, and we will see you next time.